Powerful testimony, new testimony from depositions that we have just heard from this congressional committee and new video. I want to bring in Nikole Killion, who covers Capitol Hill for us. And Nikole, I know you've spoken with many of those Capitol police officers, more than 140 of them wounded in this attack. And maybe what many of our viewers could not see is some of them are there in the room tonight. We're going to hear from them after this break. And this is difficult to watch.
It is, because they have to relive this experience, and not just with this testimony, but literally every day. Today I spoke with Sergeant Gunnell, who served with the U.S. Capitol Police, and even when he's on duty, he tries to avoid certain areas of the Capitol because he doesn't want to relive that moment. And what many people at home didn't see, and what they're seeing now, is that many of them are tearing up. That was Officer Harry Dunn, Sergeant Gunnell, Sandra Garza, whose partner Brian Sicknick was killed in the attack. I have spoken to all of them over the better course of this year. And I think what's really striking to me, especially, coming off of some of these hearings with respect to these school shootings, just the pain and anguish that you see in these families' faces, and that we're seeing in the faces of people like Harry Dunn and Sergeant Gunnell and Sandra Garza. It's indescribable. It's something that no one wants to go through. And so I think that is why, again, you are seeing these hearings. You heard the panel lay out the evidence because they want the American people to understand the trauma from that day, not just on a personal level for the people who fought against this mob, but also the trauma to our country.
Yeah, I think you said that so well. The trauma to our democracy, the trauma to these Capitol police officers, many of them are on a first name basis with the Republican and Democratic lawmakers that they protect every single day.
And what the testimony showed, we heard from new people saying that the president, it wasn't just the courts who told him that the election was not stolen. It wasn't just the audits that told him, but within his own campaign, not just as Attorney General, we've heard about that in Peril and other places, but people inside the campaign told him there was no theft, there was no stolen election, and yet he unleashed everything that led right to the pain that you're talking about. The founders worried about two things: a president who would abuse the office to stay in power, and one who would whip up the mob. What they showed tonight is the president did both. And that's exactly what the founders of the Constitution were worried about. And Nancy, describe what was new today in those depositions. I mean, they started out with the former Attorney General, Bill Barr, describing 3 meetings in which he said to the president of the United States that these claims of fraud are BS, and he said the full word.
Right. And you had not just him, but other Department of Justice officials. You had White House counsel. You had other White House aides. You had Trump family members. You had outside advisors, people who are still dedicated to the former president today, all telling him that they believe there was no there there. That's the exact quote. They didn't think that there was any evidence of fraud. They were urging him to let this go. And from Ivanka Trump on down, they said they believed what Bill Barr was saying. They understood it. And yet the former president wouldn't let it go. And it got to the point, you heard from Liz Cheney, where they were afraid to leave him alone because they thought he might once again start talking to some of these individuals, John Eastman and others, who were telling him to press on and to continue this fool's errand of arguing and convincing many of his own supporters, obviously, that there was fraud and that this election was stolen from him.
Well, let's bring in our chief election and campaign correspondent, Robert Costa. And Bob, I mean, you just spoke with Liz Cheney. She gave this detailed report tonight where she described an attempted coup by the President of the United States.
An attempted coup in the United States of America, not in some faraway nation, but here in Washington, D.C., spearheaded by then-President Donald Trump. And that argument from this committee, based on months of work on evidence, was outlined by a Republican, a former member of the House leadership, Liz Cheney, from one of the most famous families in Republican politics. It was bracing to hear it from a GOP leader talking not just to the country, but especially to her own party.
Yeah, at one point, Bob, she said, "Tonight I say this to my Republican colleagues who are defending the indefensible. There will come a day when Donald Trump is gone, but your dishonor will remain." It was breathtaking to hear her level those charges against her Republican colleagues. But she may no longer be an elected member of the Republican Party when her primary comes up, correct?
She is isolated. She is facing a tough primary challenge out in Wyoming. And what makes this especially notable in history is that this is not some retrospective, some movie where we look back on an event that happened on January 6, 2021. Former President Trump remains on the march in the Republican Party, eyeing a return, a 2024 presidential bid. He holds immense political capital in the GOP, even though he has been hobbled in some primary contests. This is a real issue facing the country and the Republican Party, a crossroads for a party that has long gone along with President Trump.
And Bob, in all your reporting, what did you find new tonight that you didn't previously know?
So many people were in on what Congresswoman Cheney has called a conspiracy, what Chairman Thompson called an attempted coup on the United States. My reporting colleague Bob Woodward and I discovered the so-called Eastman memo, 2 pages, 6 parts, outlining how Trump wanted to throw the election to the states or back into the House of Representatives. What we learned tonight was that everyone was aware of what was going on. Some tried to stop the president, some enabled him.
Bob Costa, stay with us. Let's bring in congressional correspondent Scott MacFarlane, who is here with us. Scott, you have poured through so many pages of the documents, done so many of the interviews that's related to this committee's work, and you also can detail for us what was happening in the U.S. Capitol.
By my count already, Donald Trump's name has been invoked 100 times at this hearing. But the other names we're hearing a lot of, the Oath Keepers and the Proud Boys. Let me open up the Capitol here and show you why. The Proud Boys are accused of being here before Donald Trump spoke that day. This is one of the defendants who's pleaded not guilty. He was just shown in the video footage from the committee. Dominic Pizzola smashing open the window, leading this mob of rioters in. This is the other side, another vantage point we saw moments ago. The mob followed the Proud Boys. The mob, to a degree, followed the Oath Keepers, too. These are the far-right groups that are clearly of interest to this committee. They've been unequivocal about it. The mob succeeded that day because of its size. By orders of magnitude, they were able to coordinate and outnumber police. One more image I want to show you as I pull up this still image of the accused Oath Keepers. This group, Norah, is charged with seditious conspiracy. This is a military stack they're accused of using to breach the police line. The committee has made clear tonight already, nearly a dozen times, they're interested in the Proud Boys, the Oath Keepers, and what gave rise to this.
This is such an important point, Scott. Thank you for pointing that out. We were talking about that. The Proud Boys were there on the scene even before Donald Trump was riling up the crowd just outside of the White House, accused of seditious conspiracy. But let's connect the dots. Right. Where did they get the orders from? Where did they get the idea? We learned at least part of the allegation today.
Right. And Liz Cheney, Benny Thompson promised that over the course of about 10 hearings, we're going to learn a lot more about exactly who they were talking to. But what's so amazing about what Scott is laying out is the fact that those of us who were inside the Capitol complex that day had no idea the danger that was lurking outside. I'm not just talking about reporters. I'm talking about all the lawmakers who were there, the vice president who was there to certify the election. No one really realized the gathering danger. They went on certifying the election until just a couple of minutes before these insurrectionists were banging on the doors of the House chamber trying to get in.
But I think part of the onus that this committee has been facing is to explain this is not just some mob that appeared serendipitously. This was a plan. This was plotted out. Who financed it? Will we learn that? Who led it? How did they communicate this effort? What was the goal from the very beginning? Is there evidence, additional evidence of that? And how well aware was the president of all of this?
And in the American system, when you lose an election, you don't get to use force to stay in power. That's why when Bill Barr said you can't live in a world where the incumbent stays in power unsupported by evidence. In other words, this isn't just one idiosyncratic thing. This goes directly at the way the government was set up, that when you lose in a fair election, you can't just say you won and because you're really angry, get the presidency.
And that's why you need, frankly, a congressional committee to look into this. I know that there's an argument on the right. Well, we already know what happened on January 6th. We've all seen the pictures, but the reality is there are still so many dots to connect. And if you want to prevent something like this from happening again, you need to figure out how it started in the first place.
But also worth noting that Republicans have countered by launching their own investigation now into what happened on January 6th.